institutionalized anti-corruption fight. But we are the first to have a functional anti-corruption body. A functional and active and zero interference from the executive. So we appreciate you for appreciating these our efforts. We'd like to call upon you to assist our anti-corruption body in terms of capacity building, in terms of ICT involvement in the fighting of corruption. That is a very, very important issue. And also in terms of creating an enabling environment and new knowledge, even exposing them to international challenges in fighting corruption. We urge you to come to our aid in that respect. For women who are here, I do congratulate you. Traditionally, we regard women more honest than men. And we want you to build on that. There's already that tradition, because they are not boggled down with very, very challenges of managing the family. But with the modern way of living now, the women are also heads of household. It's not only men. It's not only men who are heads of household. There are many women who are heads of household. So you see the challenges have increased, and unless if you made up your mind to be anti-corrupt, then the challenges of earning a living will co-opt you into corruption. I believe this workshop will give you stimulus, will give you encouragement, will give you motivation. I would say that this workshop will make you born again. As far as fighting anti-corruption is concerned. Thank you and God bless.
I shall certainly associate myself and be a me for she. I am very glad that we are doing this meeting. This is long overdue. The topic of gender and corruption is something that we as the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, but also as the UN as a whole, has not yet paid sufficient attention to. And it is actually just a few days ago that I read a very interesting article, and it revealed the speech of the Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, Mrs. Dr. Wan Aziza Wan Ismail. And she basically said, we need women to have the ability to be at the forefront and at the center of the fight against corruption. Speaking, of course, specifically about her own country, but I think those words were very fitting also for the Nigerian context. Now, we all do know to some extent that corruption affects women differently than men, and quite fundamentally, and sometimes, or many times, I should say, more harshly than men. Women are more dependent on the use of certain public services that are more fundamental for their well-being and the well-being of their children. In particular, when we're talking about health and when we're talking about education. Not having access to these services affects them more drastically, more dramatically than it does men. Some of these differences have emerged in the recent large-scale household survey that we helped the National Bureau of Statistics here in Nigeria to conduct, interviewing more than 30,000 Nigerians, both women and men, in more or less equal numbers, across all 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. And just to mention some of the things that we will, of course, continue to make reference to these findings, that's being handled. So as we are going through the findings, we will see that, for example, women are less likely, significantly less likely than men, to be requested and to pay bribes. Very dramatic differences. Prevalence amongst men is 35%, amongst women is 24%. And we will elaborate what exactly that means. But there is a very drastic difference. Women are also less likely than their male counterparts to find corruption unacceptable, no matter what the circumstances. Women are less likely, on the other hand, or less able to refuse or resist requests for bribes. And again, we need to understand better why that is so. And women seem to be... No, give yourself a hand, please. But women are also less likely to report corruption when they're being confronted with it. So all of these issues have been found as part of the survey. However, these findings give us some responses to burning questions, but they seem to be raising even more questions. And that is why we are here together. We need to understand much better, and we're very hopeful and confident that you will be helping us to understand, both for yourselves as well as for us in the United Nations, to understand really why it is that there are these stark differences. Secondly, what are the policy implications? What do we need to do, especially to address these differences, and especially with and for women in the fight against corruption? And finally, of course, to help us proffer some policy resolutions and some specific actions and measures that we can collectively take in order to address these issues. So that is why we're here today, and it is a great pleasure for me to be with you. I truly cherish this meeting already as we are sitting here. Again, our apologies for the inconvenience of the hall. It's a little bit out of our control, as it was said, but I'm sure that nevertheless we're going to have very intensive and very useful and very engaging discussions in the next 1.5 days. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you.
Many people believe that it is the responsibility of the government alone, be it federal and state, to checkmate the excesses of corrupt practices. But in reality, corruption is hindering our growth, corruption is hampering our success, and it is the responsibility of each and every one of us. It's a collective responsibility for us to come and join hands together to fight corruption. The topic of today, which is gender and corruption, now we'll take a glance at the second anti-corruption survey report in Nigeria, which is conducted by UNODC in collaboration with the National Bureau for Statistics. It's a very important one, because if we look at the impact of corruption, for instance, like now, if you look at what is happening, especially in the rural areas, where corruption is biting hard. We are aware that some of our remote areas, they cannot afford simple health care, perhaps because they are losing what is due for them in that aspect to corruption. So also, even in the city, it is so rampant in Kano or in other parts of the country to see that a lot of corrupt practices have been reported. For instance, in the access of healthcare in the hospital, you cannot access bed space in some of the hospitals till when you are offered or you are asked to offer a bribe. And also an issue of, we received a complaint recently whereby it was alleged that an admission in one of our universities that some people are demanding bribe with impunity, to the extent that one even gave out his account for them to send in the money. So if you look at this, and if you compare it with the gender issue, you see that women are the receiving end as well. So sensitizing women to come and join hands together in the fight against corruption, I think it's a must-do and it's long overdue. We thank the UNODC for organizing this program. We equally welcome everybody, and we thank you very much for taking those steps to come forward to Kano, to come and join hands together in this very important national assignment. On behalf of the government and good people of Kano State, and in the name of Allah, the beneficiary merciful, I declare this stakeholders meeting on gender and corruption, second anti-corruption, seventh corruption survey in Nigeria, open. Assalamu alaikum.